Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another wonderful episode of the No Fruit Podcast. You're here with Kay and Maurice, or Kafa and Maurice, however you want to put it. We're going to talk to you a little bit today about going from the brink of bankruptcy to building a future. We're going to talk about our financial journey right after this.
Let's talk about love and marriage the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. We'll help your spirit transform.
Hello, welcome back. We're going to transform some spirits because our spirits truly have been transformed
Most
over
definitely.
these past few years that we have been together as a couple. Certainly ups and downs, just like the stock market.
Right now.
Our relationship has had ups and downs, especially when it comes to our finances. It wasn't always fine.
Most definitely. Most
We
definitely.
often felt antsy about it all. So, yes, that's what my definition of finances are. It's not always fine, and it sometimes makes me feel a little bit antsy. So we did go through a lot of things with marriage. You know, one of the things they say that people break up a lot in marriages because of finances,
Right.
because they don't agree. Or maybe they did agree at one particular time, but things just kind of get off kilter when it comes to finances. I think some of it starts with we're not always true with ourselves and how we, what our relationship is with finances and what our relationship is with money. Sometimes we're taught early on that money's the root of all evil. You know, that's just an evil thing to think of that and want more money and whatnot. So, Maurice and I had some struggles in the beginning of our relationship of understanding our own personal finances as well as understanding how this is all going to work together.
Right.
I think when Maurice, you and I first started, we had, help me remember, we had separate accounts and we had a joint, and I think we did a joint account.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things kind of went a little bit awry. Yeah, not like the bread, but it went a little bit awry in reference to balancing a checkbook when more than one person has access to it. Understanding what is important, understanding how the bank system works. You know, like that was just a huge learning curve, I think, for us. Was understanding how the banking system works, and you can deposit something on, Friday, but it may not clear until Tuesday. And I think that created some issues. Also, when you tap Mac back then, was it Mac? It was Mac then. Okay, it's not Mac anymore. It's ATM. So when you would tap those things, sometimes there's extra fees associated with that. And you don't take that into accountability at times. Again, it was just such a learning curve for me, for us. And I think that led us to the brink of bankruptcy. Somewhere in there.
So,
what are your thoughts?
even though the to bring you in, talking about the brink of bankruptcy, we weren't on the brink. We filed it, right? We were in the midst of that word called bankruptcy. And so, but I think one of the things that we don't do is understand what is our true relationship with our finances. So when I personally look at my own relationship towards finances, I had no responsibility to it because I was only responsible for myself. And so, as Kafi and I spoke, like, I'm going to be honest, 1,000% honest. I did not have a bank account prior to us getting together, and I had a job. Also, we, even up until when we had gotten married, I want to say it wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 months prior to us getting married, I got a bank account. I want to say that's what it feels like. And so what was I doing? I was taking checks and cashing them at a check cashing place.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, at first you weren't necessarily, you were questioning it, but it didn't get to the point until you realize, Maurice, you're getting paid X amount of money and you come home with this. So they're taking out this.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't understand that,
Right.
and no one really spoke to me about it, in all honesty, right? And even though I learned a little bit about some financial stuff in school, like we talked about a checkbook, you get
Right.
what I mean? But we did not necessarily dig all the way deep as we
Mhm.
probably could have. So now when it's time for me to become an adult, I'm gonna be honest with you, to become an adult,
Right.
because getting married, see, it's one thing when you're dating, but becoming an adult, when you're getting married and now you have other responsibilities, that's a whole nother kin caboodle.
Right.
So I think, if we start from the very beginning, what is our real relationship when it comes to our finances?
Mm-hmm.
What does it really look like? What does it really feel like? And have we had that conversation of the importance of, yo, dude, like, do you have like the basics of, do you have a bank account? We didn't dig all the way into that. And or, because I don't remember 100%. I mean, we've been married for so long, and,
Right.
whatever, right? So, even if we did, I'm going to be honest with you, I could kind of see where I might have had some type of excuse as to why I did.
Right.
I did, or I'm sorry, I did not have it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because that's just the type of individual, unfortunately, I was. Again, hindsight.
Right.
And from my adult eyes, it was tons of excuses. And I think that's some of the challenges is us really talking about what it meant to have something as basic as a bank account. So now when it's time for us to balance the checkbook,
Right.
well, can we really do that? How do we do that? And not only are we trying to learn how to balance a checkbook, I mean, because let's be all the way real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kaf, you was on your own, right? When we got together, like you were already in your space. I was living with my mom,
Right.
and so the level of responsibilities were not necessarily the same.
I mean, even if I didn't live on my own, I've had a checking account since I was in high school. I've had a savings or some type of bank account since I was in elementary school. So my mother had instilled that in me, at least with the savings account,
Mhm.
going to Germantown Savings Bank with my little passport book thingy and, them stamping it and saying, hey, you haven't, you got $10 for your birthday and now you have, X number of dollars.
And so no one really like I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I'm listening to you and you talking about some financial stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, my family, there was a few persons that gave me cash. But if anyone else were to give me anything that might have been monetary, I had a whole lot of savings bonds.
Right. And I did too. I went through the
You get
savings
what I
bond.
mean?
Yeah, I went through the savings bond as well. Held on to those up until college. I think maybe high school for a few things. And then cashed them in so that I could do what I needed to do in college. But yes, I do remember having savings bonds in college and walking to the bank in our little town and cashing them in. It was Meridian Bank back then. So, yeah, I do recall having, the savings bonds and the things like that. But I was able to cash them because I had an account there too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's one of that's where I had an actual checking account there. From the jobs that I had in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I received a check and I didn't go. I do remember a few times going to a check cashing place
Mm-hmm.
and I forget, they took a percentage or a flat amount. I can't recall. But I was always like, well, I want my money. I don't want to, why am I paying you? So then I got hip that, okay, well, I can, instead of going to a check cashing place, I can read the bottom of the check. And if it says core states, let me go to a core states
Mm-hmm.
and I can
Mm-hmm.
go there. Even though I don't have an account, it's drawn off of that bank.
Right.
So then I learned how to stand in line, and get my money that way without having to pay anything.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted it, all up front, or if I, whatever the need that I had. But I think I've always had a checking account that I can recall. Again, I may not have had to
But see, but
write checks.
again, but again, is the from a ground level,
Mhm.
right? Someone encouraged you to have a bank account, right? And so you have a bank account, and now what is the next level or the next space for you?
Mhm.
Again, I wasn't encouraged necessarily in that space. You get what I mean?
Right.
So I think that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah.
I
Like-
think, so, and so where I did not have that,
Mhm.
my mom did not encourage me to be in that space. She did not say, "Hey, you better get a bank account," whatever, right?
And my mom was like, "You better get one either." I mean, but again, the savings account started, young on. I don't know why she, created that, and then it continued on when I was in high school. We're gonna go open up a checking account and a savings account, or whatever it was, for me. So I had those available to me. So I had my own. Um, Mac card, ATM card, so that I had access to money. So
And it may not have been necessarily like, "Yo, Cuff, you better have one." No,
right,
I mean, but it's the it's
the
the idea like,
parenting,
"Hey, like, yo,
hmm
you're going to have this," and whatever.
right,
And I didn't necessarily get that.
hmm
I'm not saying it was right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying it was a different method, right?
right, right,
And a lot of times, and it could be something as simple as it wasn't considered, it wasn't thought of, whatever it might have been. Might have assumed maybe we had. I don't know. You get what I
hmm
mean? But it wasn't pressed,
hmm
and so then, by the time we were married, and all right, well, here's what we need to do, Maurice. Here's what the way we need to go. And so, because I wasn't in that mindset of, I didn't have the opportunity to say, all right, over these years, I had to do this. I had to, maybe I had to jot down, you know, when I took money out. I didn't
right,
have to jot down, whatever. I didn't have to, make sure that I have all of my receipts. There was a lot of things that, as I look at now as being 25, 28, 25 years married, 28 years in, that, it's like, oh, snap. Like, we really have to cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure that we have these documents that we didn't have in the beginning. So by the time we get married, by the time we start to realize, like, oh snap, our wedding cost X amount of money.
hmm
Oh wow, we did take out a loan, did we?
right.
And so now we have to, not only do we have the loan for the wedding, we have the loan for the house, we got the loan for the car,
And we have student loans and
we have
other.
student loan,
Right.
so we have all of these situations going on and not considering what, was going on,
hmm
and so we had a lot of challenges in that, of understanding, and that's
So,
something that
do
we
you think the
mhm.
challenges, and just to help some of our listeners, like, is the challenge that the relationship that we had with money, or was it the relationship that we had with one another, not expressing it and communicating financially what
I
was
can see
going
it
on?
both. I can see both.
hmm
And I can see where, you know, was that something that necessarily, were you in a position where you wanted to have that conversation with me? Did you feel comfortable having that conversation with me?
And like you said, your younger self at that particular time would not want that conversation. I did want to have that conversation, like, hey, like, we have $20 in the account, and we still, you know, we can't do this. And you're like, well, it's $20 in the account. I can go take
Right.
$20 out. You know, I'm
Right.
like, well, no, we have to maintain X number of dollars in the account
Mhm.
or they're going to take out $15.
Well, and see, that's the see, and so here is the negligence, right? And I could just say it again for where I am right now, what's been going on in our lives, all that type of stuff, right? You know, so and I need y'all to, you know, even answer this question in the, you know, wherever you're listening, if you're able to leave a comment or a review or whatever it is, and just say hashtag account fees, right? You know, and so when I say that is that, which is what Kafa alluded to early on, I personally did not always understand that going to another Mac machine had maybe 1 to 3 types of fees attached to it.
Correct.
Right? You know, so it might not just been 2. It might not just been 1. It depends on time of day, this, that, you know, oh wow, you don't really have enough money in the account, whatever else. So to your point of, you know, Maurice, we have $20 in the account.
Right.
We have exactly $20.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, Kav, you know what? I get paid tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take out this $20. So, and that particular time when we first got married, I worked in the hospital, right? So let's say I go downstairs because of ease.
Mm-hmm.
I go downstairs to the Mac machine.
Yes.
So the Mac machine was not attached to the bank that I was a member of, which is what your point is.
Right.
And so now I go to the Mac machine, I take the $20 out.
Because there's $20 in the account.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you think you're going to take it to zero, knowing you're getting paid the next day.
yes.
Yes.
And so not knowing necessarily, even though it's now I can read on there that it says there's a $1.50 fee. Right?
Yes.
I'm like, all right, you know what? In all honesty, Kafa, there's really $21.73 in the account.
Okay.
All right. So, because a lot of times we round it off. We don't always say it's exactly 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's $21.73. It says it's going to take out $21.50. All right, Kafa, guess what? I can live with that.
Right.
So here's what the challenge was, y'all. And again, account fees.
Hashtag account fees.
If you take out this and you have $1.50 taken out because you use this particular Mac machine, but it's i.e. out of network, like you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you see a doctor or whatever else. So you're out of network. And so now not only does that bank take out money, but guess what? Your bank takes out
your
money
own bank
too.
takes out something.
So now so
now your $20 was, you calculated $21.50,
right.
thinking that, hey, I have $21.75, 73 in the bank, and
Right.
you're clear.
Right.
But you didn't realize and recognize that your bank does a $3 or a $5 surcharge.
Right. So now that $21.50 is now $24.50,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that means now my account is negative
Overdrawn.
or overdrawn,
Mm-hmm.
right? $3 and the change, right?
And wrong.
Well, I'm just saying initial,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Because just from that one transaction,
Mm-hmm.
right? The initial was $24.50 minus that 23 cent. So so I would have overdrawn it by $2.77, right?
Mm-hmm.
But wrong, Maurice, is overdrawn. So what is the overdraft fee?
Yes. Back in those days.
So what is the overdraft fee? And unfortunately, what it seemed like, in most cases though, it overdrawn, and my bank, whatever was going on at that time, because it was overdrawn, my check wasn't clear.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember that.
Right. Because you was in a negative account. Yes.
So it wasn't clear. And then because it wasn't clear that particular day, right? It's another day. Well, guess what? It's another overdraft fee when it finally clears the following day, right?
Yes.
And so now, let's say the fee was $55. So now I have, $50, right? Or it's $25 per bounce, right? So now I'm negative $50 just for overdraft on top of that $273.
Yes.
So now I don't understand.
Where's my money at?
Right. And because of that, now we're automatically short for a bill.
Yes.
We're already behind on a bill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so how many of you have had the same type of account surcharges, account fees, whatever it is that when you like, yo, where did that come from? Like, I don't understand it. And guess what? You know, so now we have the bank fee, we got the Pico, because guess what? We were short last month, so now we're trying to catch up, and oh shoot, that means we got to pay double. So now all of a sudden, Pico is double, and because we didn't pay them at all, we might have shorted the water just about a couple of dollars. So we're like, hey, we're going to make sure that we're going to catch up on this check, right? And so what was happening is that we were always behind one way or another. Mm-hmm. But I would still find a way to eat lunch every day. Right. I would find a way for us to buy a movie, you know, when we went to Target or whatever it was, right? You know, so now here's this situation that I don't have a great relationship with my finances, i.e., that MAC card, that ATM card, right. You know, my bank, you know, me and my bank having this love-hate relationship, and I want to go to another bank. But guess what, Maurice? That's not going to solve your issue.
And I think it's important, as we started off, you know, this show, was being honest with yourself, being honest about your finances and where you are when it comes to your relationship with your partner. And I don't know that we were totally there at that moment when we were dating or when we did premarital counseling, that we were truly honest with all of those things. I think we thought that we had things under wrap.
Right.
You know, I knew where I was financially. Like Maurice said, hey, you know, I had my own place for, you know, some time. I was able to pay my rent on time. I was able to pay my utilities on time, my student loans, my credit cards, those things. So I felt secure in that. But I went into the marriage of, you know, we're going to do a joint account. We're going to work these things out together. And when we were having issues financially, I would ask questions. And as Maurice said, like, you know, there was an issue there because I think he wasn't secure in understanding where he was and the relationship he had with finances and understanding, again, the banking system and how that worked. I think that was, you know, certainly an issue there. And, you know, we didn't know how to communicate that. And that, again, lapse in judgment, that lapse in communication, that lapse in making regular payments led us to bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, and so we're filing bankruptcy 3-4 years in, you know, into our marriage. Like you know, so in all honesty, y'all, like, our stuff snowballed rather rapidly. Yeah. Right? You know, because, and here's the other part too, you know, both of us was pushing the other to be better. Mm-hmm. So we were chasing money, we was chasing jobs or whatever. So in that, guess what? We were leaving jobs, you know, not 100% ready. You know, my thought was like, hey, if I'm going to go from one job to another, well, guess what? I'm going to take me a whole week off. Well, guess what, Maurice? You big dummy. You ain't getting paid for that. Right, you get what I mean? Right. You know, so and if you take this week off, well, when's your next check? Mm-hmm. Shoot. It's not for another 3 weeks. So not only did I lose a week, that I got, you know, and then I started, now I got another 3 weeks to wait. But doggone it, my last check that I got from the last job, I was already playing it close to the hilt. You get what I mean?
Right.
So guess what now? But guess what, Kav? You know what? I go from the hospital in the city of Philadelphia to now working all the way out Kennett Square. So now all of a sudden, what happens?
Mm-hmm.
My gas for the car now triples in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing that it was going to triple in 1 week.
Right. So you're thinking you're moving to another place of employment to make more money to help cover some of our expenses. Like, hey, I'm going to make this extra money. We're going to be able to come out of this. We can make these payments. We'll be fine. And then again, lack of accounting, lack of clarity and understanding. Like, hey, no, I have to travel a lot further.
Right.
I have to deal with some things traffic wise and, stop and go and the weather, all of those other things that added on to it. So, and some of you might think, oh, what's the weather have to do with your finances? Well, guess what? Your tires have to be on point on that car, like everything has to be your wipers. Like there's so many things that you financially will come out that you don't have to deal with. Again, when he was working in the city, we took public transportation sometimes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a big hassle all the time, but now that you're saying, hey, I have to travel 50 miles to work or however many miles it was, that has a whole lot to do with the car. So now you're doing oil changes more often. You're doing so many other things to that vehicle.
It was a difference of going a half an hour at the most 40 minutes to and from work, right? My thought is I'm on Kafi. I'm going one end of Route 1 to the other end of Route 1, whatever. So I'm getting opposite direction. I'm still taking Route 1, opposite directions. Well, guess what? You know what? The opposite direction that I was going, that road was an hour and a half. Now, this is what Kafi was talking about. More than once, I came back in a snowstorm.
Mm-hmm.
More than once, when I came back, it was during the holiday season, it would take me literally 3 hours to get home because of traffic. I'm sitting in traffic for 3 hours.
Right.
Sitting there. So guess what I'm doing? I'm wasting gas, right? And because, and at that time, I was beating my car up. The car was, it was a van. It was a truck. I mean, I was moving people in that car. I was doing a whole lot with that car.
Right.
I mean, we were strapping furniture to the top of it. We was throwing furniture in the trunk. It was a 1997 Nissan Maxima. I beat the crap out that car, in all honesty. And that car kept saying, "No mas, master, no mas." And I remember. It was like in the shop. After a while, it was like in the shop literally twice a month. And every time we went to the shop, it was no less than 800 every single time. Right. No less. Because I was beating the crap out of it.
But and it was things you needed the car in order to get
to work.
Get to work. We needed the car to get our family around because at that time we had a young family. So, you weren't going to be on the bus with two, carriers and trying to get all around with groceries. It just wasn't happening.
So I'm dropping the kids off while Kafa's hopping on the bus or whatever it is, because at that time we didn't have a steady second car at that time, so what are we doing? Right. So I'm leaving extra early to drop the kids off. So in all reality, I'm going from where we lived at that particular time, which was in Upper Darby. I'm traveling 15, 20 minutes to West Philadelphia just to go all the way back past where I live to go to work. And that was an hour and a half from where I lived at. So in essence, that extra 15, 20 minutes, I mean, I was pushing the car. Like I was on that pedal every day, 90, easy.
But the one great thing is things turned around.
Eventually. I turned around. I went to sleep.
We turned things around. We started to better understand our finances. We started to better talk to one another through this. It wasn't easy. It didn't turn around right away. But after being beat up by the financial system and beat up and beat down, I think we started to get a better grasp on understanding finances, understanding what's going to work. One of us just had to kind of give up and like, look, you handle it because I'm not getting this thing together right.
Yeah, but I think that and this is going to be a whole nother episode because we're already, into this. But there's some things that we didn't learn really until recently, right? There's some things that, we tried. We thought we were pretty decent communicators because we was able to talk to our peers and seem like we were knowledgeable or whatever else. We still sucked with each other. We were very poor communicators when it came to one another. And as Kafa, as you mentioned earlier, like, it was we didn't open up. We really did not have the opportunity. We did not have the or gave ourselves the opportunity. I shouldn't say have, because we had the opportunity. We didn't give ourselves the opportunity to have and face those really hard conversations. We didn't do it. And we ran away from it. We were punks, in all honesty. Right?
I mean, and it's not an easy conversation to have, It's especially when you're not understanding the why. Why is this happening? And you can't get your hand on it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think that was, the issue. Like you said, hey, you think you're doing right. The more I try to do right, the more things go wrong.
Yeah.
As you said, hey, I'm trying to do things the right way. And then the next thing I know, hey, the car needs this and the kids need that and the house is falling in and is leaking here. So yes, it was difficult. And those are just conversations that people, as Maurice said, people just didn't have with us prior to. Like, oh, you want to get married? Guess what? That's expensive. Not just the whole ceremony part, but life after. Oh, you want to have a kid? You know how much that costs per year? It's expensive.
But understand why though. See the problem is that I do believe that our portrayal of maturity outshone our immaturity. Our potential shown more than the inability of potential, or whatever it was, right? Where we really were. If y'all understand where I'm trying to get to, so it's like, no, y'all good. Y'all laugh, y'all joke, y'all seem compatible or whatever else. But the reality is y'all know what was going on behind closed doors.
But that's the thing. People weren't real. And that's what I just want to be real with the audience right now. We're trying to be real with you and let you know, like, it's not easy. And I think that's the part, like, no one was real with us and saying, hey, you're taking two different people and putting them together. You're going to have some ups and some downs. And even if whatever worked for you as a single person may not work for you as a married person or a person in a relationship. Even if you're just getting a roommate, like, hey,
right.
What worked for you as a person living on your own may not work for you when you get a roommate.
Right.
And you have to share bills and you have to share space. It's going to be a challenge. There's going to be compromise. There's going to be changes. And you're not always going to get your way. And you have to be okay with that. But you have to be okay first with where you are. Like, what are your boundaries? What are the things that you will and will not live with? And then with your partner, with your roommate, with your spouse, with whomever, you're in that relationship with and that you're trying to make that compromise with, what's needed at that particular time. And I think we didn't have that conversation from others, from the outside.
Well, I think, why? Because, how many people that was around us was in all honesty, living check to check, right? How many people were still having their own bills and utilities and repossessions and, stuff getting turned off and so, it wasn't always easy. And in all reality, And I'll share this story before we leave, right? We just had a family member that passed away. And there was a story shared how this particular family member wanted to assist another family member while they were in school. And they were questioned whether or not they could really give up any money to do this. And their best friend knew that they didn't have it, right? But they was like, I just want to make sure that they had some candy money, right? But so, yes, your heart is in the right place. The heart is there, right?
Right.
But the resources were not. And so if you constantly are in that space and you're doing that while, the person, that family member you want to assist, right? They look up to you. They're like, hey, I'm glad that I received this because I could use this while I'm in school. Meanwhile, the other person is suffering, right? So how do you transfer that? How do you build upon that? How do you ensure that the family grows from that? Especially when you hear stories like that, and they didn't know that story until they got older. So guess what? So now, because I didn't hear that when it happened, right? And I don't understand, like, I need to change that narrative, right? I didn't change it. The narrative wasn't changed. So that behavior now is reciprocated with other family members that I have. Because I still want to give. I still want to be, shown as like, I still love you, I care, or whatever it is. But that's still a trickle-down effect, for that situation. So I think that some of us in our broken space stay broken, period. And that broken space never changes to the next generation because the next generation never knows 100% of that broken place. And that's all they see before them. So now I can't change. I don't know how to change because I don't see a true example in front of me. And because I don't know how to change, I'm still relying on any and everybody else around me, right? And I'm not saying that those two individuals didn't change. I'm just using this as an example, right? The idea, right? So how do we change that narrative? And I think that's the challenge, right? So I know that this was a pretty deep, heavy conversation, and it's a conversation that needs to be had. If you're in a real relationship, and it doesn't have to be, when I say real, I'm not talking about just a, hey, we're married. Because you could be real 100% of the time, and real being like, yo, we're 3 months in. What's up? You get what I mean? Like, I'm really trying to see what this thing is going to happen, what's going, how things are going to turn out or whatever. So are you ready to have that type of conversation? Are you mature enough? Unfortunately, we see all the stupid stuff on social media, right? And, we see all these dating situations where like, the lady's like, yo, if he ain't got the money to, take care of me and all that type of stuff. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen all the time. Because at some point in time, there's going to be a drought. Everybody goes through a drought, right? So how are you able to continue to pick that guy up? Vice versa, how are you able to pick that girl up, right? And understand that, yo, we're in this together. Right. So as we're looking at this opportunity in these moments or whatever else, how do we make sure that our foundation is strong? And I think that's some of the challenges. We didn't have those, yo, the foundation is strong or the foundation is crumbling. It's rocky. And I wasn't really shown that. So as we talked about in the past, relationships, we're dating a representative. We're not dating the vulnerable little kid, 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid that doesn't understand love for real, that doesn't understand what it means to have a real relationship, that doesn't understand what it means to pay bills and have responsibilities, or whatever it is, because we weren't taught that.
Right.
We weren't shown that. So I think that's where things are.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that some of this information we talked about on this episode was helpful to someone out there. Whether you're in the planning stages of starting a relationship and starting to get married, because we're in that springtime season where people are planning weddings, and it's also, I think, April, and where people are getting ready for tax season. So we wish you all good luck. As Maurice said, this is a great conversation that we're having, and we will certainly follow up with it with another episode.
Most definitely. And we hope that y'all have been listening to some of our interviews. Please, please, please let us know what y'all think about our interviews. We've been interviewing some really, really impactful individuals.
Yes.
Yes. But you know what, y'all? We'll talk to y'all a little later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. We hope today's discussion left you feeling uplifted, encouraged, and ready to take on life's journey with purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. You can catch up on past episodes, send us your thoughts, or learn more about us on social media. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you next time.